everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to make pancakes 3 different ways, and we're going to start off with my favorite, some blueberry cornmeal pancakes. So for this recipe we start by making 2 flax eggs. So that's 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed along with 6 tablespoons of water. So that's basically 3 tablespoons per 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed to make a flax egg. Then just give that a stir, and we're going to set that aside to gel while we mix the rest of the ingredients into a bowl. To our bowl we are going to add 1 1/4 cups of whole wheat flour and 3/4 cup of cornmeal. You want this to be the fine cornmeal. Then we are going to add 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Then just give those a little whisk and we will move on to the wet ingredients. Then for our wet ingredients, we are going to use 2 cups of a plant-based milk of your choice, along with 2 tablespoons of any kind of vegetable oil or cooking oil that you like or have on hand. Then we are going to add our flax eggs, and just give that a whisk, and then we'll be adding that to our dry ingredients. Just give that a stir. You will end up having some lumps in the end, but you don't want too many. I actually switched to a whisk here to help me stir this a little bit better. And then I added my blueberries. Sometimes I add them to the mix, sometimes I just add them on top as the pancakes are cooking. So I added some vegan butter to my hot pan, and I'm making big pancakes here, so I just poured some on there. And then, like I said, I add some blueberries to the top while it's cooking. Let those cook for about 2 minutes or until they are browned on each side. Then, of course, add plenty of maple syrup. And I also like to top mine with some vanilla vegan yogurt. I think this one is by So Delicious, but you can use whatever brand that you like. I just really like the creaminess it adds. I also put some homemade raspberry chia jam on there and some extra fresh raspberries and blueberries. I also enjoyed these pancakes with a couple of strips of marinated tempeh bacon. And this really is my favorite pancake recipe. I make this one a lot and I've been making it for years, so I'm pretty sure you're going to love this one. Next, we are making my banana bread pancakes. So we're going to start out again with 1 flax egg this time. So that's 1 tablespoon of flaxseed and 3 tablespoons of water. And just give that a stir and set it aside. Then we're going to grind 1 cup of rolled oats into a flour. These are gluten-free if you use gluten-free oats, because we're just using oat flour and not any whole wheat flour. I just use a little blender that I have to grind spices and chia seeds for this. I just give it a few pulses, but you can use any kind of food processor or blender to do this, maybe a coffee grinder. Just put that in a bowl, and we're going to add 1 tablespoon of baking powder and 1/8 teaspoon of salt. Then we're going to mash 1 very ripe banana. And I didn't have any fresh ones on hand, but I did have some frozen ones, so that's what I used here, which is why it looks a little bit brown. But it worked perfectly well. Just make sure you thaw it out before you mash it. Then we are adding 1/4 cup of any kind of plant-based milk that you like. and then 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract and 1 tablespoon of maple syrup or other liquid sweetener, and then our flax egg. Just give that a good stir, and then we will be adding the dry ingredients to that. So I just add the dry ingredients a little bit at a time. It makes it a little easier. And just stir it to incorporate all the dry into the wet ingredients. And again, it will probably be a little bit lumpy, but that's okay. You just don't want to overmix it. I'm making these pancakes a little smaller than the last one, so I just used about 1/4 cup of the batter. And this one I made plain just because it was sort of a tester, but we're going to put some toppings on the rest. So for these, I'm using some chopped walnuts, but if you don't like walnuts, you could try pecans or almonds or whatever kind of nut you like. And of course, some chocolate chips. Now this is what I would typically put on top of my banana bread recipe. I have a link for that in the description box below if you'd like to give that recipe a try. Make some real banana bread, it's delicious. And you can see that there's some chocolate melted on the pan there, and I'll give you a tip on how to avoid that because we don't want to lose any of that precious chocolate. So if you just press them into the batter a little bit and kind of cover it up, that'll keep it from melting onto the pan. And again, if you want to try this recipe or my banana bread recipe, they are both on my blog at veggerarchy.com, and I will have links to those in the description box below. We don't want to forget about the maple syrup. That's one of the most important parts of pancakes. But maybe you don't have any maple syrup, or maybe you don't like maple syrup. You could use agave or maybe even honey if you're not vegan, or just sprinkle a little bit of sugar on top. But don't forget about those extra chocolate chips and walnuts because they're super yummy and kind of aesthetically pleasing too. This is definitely the most healthy pancake recipe, but if you're looking for something a little less healthy, here's some vegan buttermilk pancakes for you. And we're going to be using egg replacer instead of a flax egg, but you could still use a flax egg if you want. This takes 1½ teaspoons of the egg replacer with 2 tablespoons of water. And then you just mix that together, removing any lumps as you stir, and then we'll just set that aside. Next, we're going to make some vegan buttermilk. So to 1¼ cups of plant-based milk, add about 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar or lemon juice, stir and set aside. Then we're going to use 1¼ cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of sugar, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Just stir those together. The next step is to add 2 tablespoons of vegan butter or vegetable oil. If you're using vegan butter, make sure it's really soft when you add it. I actually used cold butter here and it really didn't blend in the way that I wanted to. I ended up having to go and kind of smash it in later. And then add our egg replacer egg and our vegan buttermilk. Then I just used my hand mixer to blend that up. You don't have to use a hand mixer. I was just feeling a little lazy and decided to do it this way, but to tell you the truth, I like using my hand and a spoon much better than this. I think this kind of overmixed it a little bit, made it too thick, and I ended up having to go back in and add a little bit more milk. Then I also went back in with a fork to smash up some of those chunks of cold butter that I was talking about. And of course, I added some vegan butter to melt on the skillet. And then I started just dolloping some spoonfuls of the batter onto the skillet to make some little silver dollar pancakes. If you've ever seen a silver dollar, that's what these are named after. It's kind of a large coin, and you can fit several of them on the skillet. They're just kind of a fun way to make the pancakes. And the way you can tell when they're ready to flip is when they form a bunch of bubbles on the surface. And the temperature of this stovetop was kind of uneven, so the brownness of them did vary a little bit. And I ended up leaving that last one to cook a little longer till it formed some more bubbles before I flipped it over. And another way to make sure that they get more brown on the other side is to add a little more vegan butter as you're flipping them. So there is our third variation of vegan pancakes. And I added some lovely fresh raspberries and maple syrup to these. Like I said, these are probably the least healthy of the three variations, but they're more like a traditional pancake, and they were my son's favorite. You could also add blueberries or chocolate chips or nuts to these, or use a flax egg to make them a little bit healthier. I hope you enjoy and make one or all three of these recipes. And make sure you give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. It really helps my videos get seen when you do. And leave a comment. Let me know what your favorite pancake is, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.